What's up, people?
Great. So you and I have spoken at length, so I will not be boring you with my questions or anything. So they've watched a good 30, 40 minutes of our discussion, and as talked, I think it's a very important topic, so I'm going to hand over directly to people who are taking notes, people that wanted to engage with you and ask questions and unpack. So I would only ask that you guys obviously speak up, and then obviously because we need to get good audio quality, speak into the mic, and then I'll use the webcam so that you can see your face. So let's get straight into it. Any takers?
Any break? I can go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. I hope everyone can hear me. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. So from the discussion, I think my question is around when did masculinity become a problem? Because if you look at masculinity from an African perspective, it's different from what it is. Can you?
Okay, I'll repeat your question for you.
Okay, cool. So I'm saying masculinity from an African perspective versus an American perspective is very different, and masculinity has changed over time. So if you look at the primitive years, I think masculinity was based on gender roles and survival. So women were at home and men were out there hunting based on our actually natural abilities as humans. Females don't have the same strength. Unfortunately, our testosterone is not the same as men. So obviously it's based on survival. Men are out there are hunting, and then women are at home as nurturers, right? So gradually, a lot of things have happened. Slavery has happened. Apartheid has happened. So when does masculinity become problematic? And I'm speaking from an African perspective. When it's become problematic, because most of our experience has been survival. You know, there was us alone, primitive, and then there was colonization, slavery, apartheid. So what is problematic about our masculinity, and where do we go from here? Cool.
Well, thank you, Queen. Thank you for your question. I'm having difficulty hearing, but that's a complicated question, because we're using Eurocentric constructs and Western constructs to define our human reality, on this planet. Masculinity, as I understand it, was not intended to benefit, men of African descent. And, I can't locate a time, like what's decade, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, or 90s, when it became a problem. But I just think that more and more men in this country are beginning to see that their heteronormative and hypermasculine images and messages don't serve us anymore, and that there's no one definition of masculinity that fits everybody, and so it doesn't work. Masculinity is not McDonald's. You go to McDonald's and the menu does not change, right? But masculinity, as we perceive it and understand it, continues to evolve, continues to be deconstructed. We have our own beliefs, our own morals, our own values, and not everybody feels the same way along the spectrum. So I just think that masculinity as a term does not serve us, and I think that it would benefit us to describe ourselves with another word and just get rid of it.
So my question is, we live in an era of social media and TikTok and Instagram. We don't live in an era of sending essays or writing essays or writing blogs, or which are the things that I grew up on. So is there a shorthand to being a man that you can give to a woman who is self-identifies as feminine, to allow us to participate meaningfully with other men? Because it's we've got a lot to worry about. We don't know the right terminology or the right words, or the whole background and the context that you've just presented. So can you just give us a shorthand as women, or a toolkit just to make the male experience a little bit more enjoyable or livable?
Okay, well, I mean, you're doing it right now just by having this dialogue. I believe that every human being has masculine and feminine energy. And I think it's important to affirm both, right? So a word like nurturing, in my opinion, is not a feminine energy. Sensitivity, in my opinion, is not a feminine energy. Intuition, in my opinion, is not a feminine energy. And I think we tend to assign gender to certain energies that are in both of us. And so sometimes you just have to look the man in the eye and tell him the truth about how you really feel. It's really just that simple. You know, you may be fearful, anxious, nervous, worried, uncomfortable, and uncertain. You may have a lot of conflicting emotions inside of you, but it's really up to you to somehow find the courage to look a man in the eye and tell him exactly how you feel in the moment. And that may be a way to begin a heartfelt connection. I have a question.
Watched and sure.
I
Go ahead,
wanted to know what people thought about my views on patriarchy and privilege. And I particularly would like to know from the women. I would like to know from the women in the audience, what did you think about my views on patriarchy and privilege?
Yes, yes. Yes, get nice and close.
Oh, me? Where am I? Oh.
No, there you go.
Okay. I think what really caught my attention was when you said men are victims, or actually you said it, men are victims of patriarchy themselves. And I've never thought of it from that perspective because it's always been us versus them. But it actually hit home that this is actually true. I think to your point where it's all men are now based on how much money they have, how much can they give, and it's a narrative I feel women have perpetuated in the most recent times, and I think men have allowed it. Some men, let me not say all, some men have allowed this narrative to overstretch and become now the reality for all. Which then puts the ones who did not write the book with the females in a place where they're actually victims to now have to live up to a standard that they did not set. So it was very interesting to hear that sentence for me because it then made me say, take a step back and actually think, next time I look at a male, I must not automatically assume that they are benefiting from patriarchy because it might not be the case. Also, I think a very interesting thing that you said in the beginning when you started that also hit home for me was I found it very interesting to hear someone, male, say, I grew up in a home where my dad was there, but he was X, Y, and Z, and I didn't trust him, and I actually feared him. I've never heard that perspective from a male child before, because it always plays out that daughters tend to protect their mothers because dad is going off the rails, and we all know that dad has girlfriends and he likes women and he beats up mom. But it's always been the daughters who kind of step up to fight the battles. The sons try to do it physically, but never emotionally. But we never consider the emotional impact of that to what it does to the boy child, especially when you're told, man up, you don't cry, men don't cry, don't be soft. This is how it is. And we never really truly unpack what that does to a male child to then have to grow up, one, with what you've witnessed, two, knowing you couldn't defend, and three, not knowing how do you then proceed in your own life. to define what that looks like. So I can see how we end up in the space where masculinity is at question, because there are a lot of authors that aren't men, the bigger, broader group of men. It's a select few, and to perpetuate that, it's women as well that have now, who also from their own space, come from a background which I would say we are also wounded, so hurt people hurt others. And from that hurt, we are now trying to build, if I can put it this way, we're coming from a space where we're trying to assert our own dominance so that we don't go back to the space where our mothers were with our fathers, which then kind of creates an even bigger avalanche that then brings us to the point where we are at right now.
Any add-ons on that from the ladies? It's your time to shine now. So can you move the? Yeah, just pass the laptop. Pass the lap. Just pass the laptop.
Okay, cool. I just feel like masculinity doesn't allow for autonomy, or perhaps this way we're describing masculinity doesn't allow men to have any autonomy. It's like if you're not this, then you're nothing at all. So now men are faced with all these issues because they are imprisoned by what they should be. So then outside of what we think masculinity or how men should live their lives, if they are not this, they are nothing. And because of that, it becomes very problematic. That's why we're seeing men with anxiety, depression, because if they're anything outside of what we have prescribed masculinity to be, then they are nothing at all. So I think we as females are problematic in that sense as well, because we still have these expectations of men to show up a certain way, but we don't allow them to be individuals as much as females are allowed to be various different types of females. And it's even in the terminologies or the vocabulary. There's toxic masculinity. It's a blanket approach. There's not a masculinity for this type of guy or masculinity for that type of guy. It's just this toxic masculinity, and then that also goes back to how we have placed men into a box to say if they are not these 10 things, they are nothing. So I think that's my views on this topic.
Okay, masculinity. I honestly don't know what it means, because now when I was taught how to speak English, I had to learn how to transfer a word into Nguni, into the native language. So when you say masculinity, I'm thinking muscles, I'm thinking heart. So if someone is coming with a masculinity, for me, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a man. It could be a woman who's masculinity, because muscles means you're working hard, you're going in hard when you're doing something, right? So when it then comes to patriarchy, I know that from the age of about 0 to 18, boys are just left to be on their own, to do what they need to do, because we told that, no, let him be, he's a boy, he'll figure it out, right? And then from 18 to adulthood, this is when he gets married, where now he's got a woman who's taking care of him. He's never really accountable for anything, because he's always just going in hard whenever he has to do something. So I feel like men have been allowed to get away with a lot of things. We excuse a lot of things because we let it go on for as long as it goes on, because boys will be boys. The boys are never held accountable, whereas the women have been taught to take care, because 0 to 18 years ago, you are taught to clean the house, how to cook, because this is how you're going to catch a man. And then 18 to ever, this is now you're married. You now need to apply all those things you were taught from 0 to 18. Now take care of the man, do this, do this. Now we're living in 2023. Things are changing. We have become the men we don't want to date, because now those men have become trashy. We've adopted their ways. So it's now changing. And when I have a lover or a boyfriend who wants to, not to say we don't want to give them a safe space, we don't know how to give them a safe space to be, because we have not been equipped. We have not been taught conflict resolution as a couple, or we've never seen it as black children growing up. More often than not, we don't have fathers in the home, we don't see relationship. And I often tell the story that when I grew up staying with my mom, who's a nurse. So where I was, it was strictly just nurses and teachers, all single women, until I was about 10, 11. A friend of mine is like, let's go. And I'm like, oh, I'm saying to the friend, let's go. And she's saying, we can't go. And I'm like, why not? Because like, no, my dad is fetching me. And I was like, wait, a dad is an actual thing. You stay with the father. It's not just something you read from the books. She's like, no, my father is fetching me. For me, it was such a foreign concept that there's an actual father who stays with you in the same house. Never. And I was 11 when this happened, you know. So it goes back to saying we don't know how to be. We've never been taught how to be. So there's a lot of teaching and unteaching that needs to take place in order for us to find who we are and just forge a way forward together. Yeah, that's my 2 pieces.
Maybe I should give an introduction. So, Sibo Mabunda, I was fortunate that I grew up in a very stable home. But not just stable, but traditional. You know, so I had my father and my mother, and my father had a second wife, which is acceptable to me because that's my culture. You understand? And growing up in such an environment, I was taught this is masculinity, or this is how you become a man. And some things good, some things bad, but I want to give just some context based on how I grew up. I don't agree with everything that has been mentioned by the women and by the men. Now, I believe that, and based on how I grew up, is that some of the expectations that you have mentioned, they're right. Because men need to be held accountable. You understand? You need to have a checkbox. If you don't have a checkbox, we will never live to that standard. The standard that you were taught by your mothers and to cook and clean and so forth, you know? And if I can say how I grew up, is that we grew up knowing that a man slaughters, a man fights, a man protects his family, a man provides for his family. So those things, they come standard. So if you feel like your husband / boyfriend is unable to protect, preside, and provide, then he is not your man. That's what I was taught. You understand? And providing doesn't mean a G63. You understand? Providing doesn't mean a big house in Parkhurst. You understand? It may be to be able to feed your children and to secure your future, you know? And if you don't keep a man to that standard, then it's okay to move away from that. You understand? That's what I was taught. I feel like we have, and this may be very controversial and, you know, cause a lot of strife, né? But we have moved away from our culture. Because in my culture, I'm born Tonga, and I grew up amongst the Zulus, and I was taught that, like, as much as you can have multiple wives, but you need to take care of them. You need to show them love. And the way you show them love is by the way you protect your children, and the way you protect her, and how you listen to her, and how you be there for her when she needs you. You understand? And that's what I grew up in. You understand? And hence that's why I got married at the age of 24. I've been married for 10 years next year. I've known my wife since I was in high school, you know. And how I know these things is because I grew up in that structure. Do you understand? And that structure was traditional. And as much as my wife won't accept a second wife now, yeah, she won't. But my point here is that I haven't left my tradition, you know, and I feel like sometimes we, and especially the women, we adopt too much to the, and not in a bad way, to the Western life, and we lose the true essence of who we are, how we grew up, and what works for us. You understand, as Africans. And I feel like that would be a resolution for a lot of the issues that we go through in our day-to-day lives. You understand? Gender roles. Like, you must know where you stand. And as much as, like, another thing, this is my last point. Men don't want love. They want respect and honor. That's all. They want respect and honor. And once you have that, you are able to keep a man. It's not the cooking, it's not the looking of the weaves and the long nails and the makeup. That stuff doesn't matter, honestly. Do you understand? But it's the respect, the honor, and to be able to take care of his prosperity, which is his kids. Those are the things that mean the most to me. And that's just how I grew up. And yeah, that's just the points I wanted to add around the topics that have been discussed today, is that I agree on a lot of points, but I disagree on a lot of other stuff that women expect from us.
For me, when I wanted to raise my hand, it was before you went. So I'm just gonna respond to you and then get back to my original point. I think what we need to understand is that if we don't have these strict ideas about masculinity, womanhood, gender roles, it is freedom. At the end of the day, it is freedom to be yourself in whatever form that is. So I really think we need to walk a path to say that men can be whatever. And even as women, you know, you say we want providers, all of that, but we also need to unpack why is it that we want that, right? How are we also providing to this home? How are you contributing? Anyway, I'm just saying, it is freedom, and I really encourage you to walk that journey. But also what I wanted to say is, I am in a lot of these spaces, or not spaces, I'm in a lot of these discourses, and I find that men are always raising their hand saying, I am lonely, I am struggling with societal pressures, and also I have been raised not to speak about my feelings. I hope that at the end of this, when we walk away, we can hold each other accountable, because ultimately you have awareness, right? What are we doing about the awareness, guys? Who are you speaking to? You're struggling with all of these issues. Who are you speaking to? And I find that men, or maybe the men that I know, they are open to speaking with their partners. That's great, but that's only romantic vulnerability. As men, you need to speak together, right? You need to speak to therapists, speak to people, because we can't keep saying that men are struggling under all of this weight, and we just keep saying it over and over. And then we get in rooms like this, and we speak about the problem. And fine, you're not gonna call me, you're not gonna walk on the stage and tell me that, you know, my kids are this and this. But still, are you speaking to someone about your kids? I just want us to hold each other accountable to, you know the problem, please work on the problem. Hold your friends accountable. And as women, also be accountable, right? You can't say, oh, I don't like a man that is so sensitive, all of that. Hold yourself accountable to say, that's not right. I need to give men a safe space to be whoever they are. It's good that we get together, but I just don't see the action. So that's all I wanted to say. Please, when we walk away, let's do something different. Thank you.
So the lady in the green actually said like proper stuff. And let me actually get it right in my brain first of all. Okay. What you're saying that there's no point in talking about the problem was my initial point from literally about 2 hours ago. That those of us that are sitting in the room willing to sit and have this type of, conversation, for lack of a better term, it's almost like preaching to the converted, in the sense that we're willing to have this conversation. And the question I want to propose is, how do you get to the, I don't want to say primitive minds, but how do you get to those that are, in sports sometimes you're rude, okay? I don't mean primitive minds, but what I mean is that, look, the modern world has moved too far forward for the people that live in it. So as in, we can have a discussion, people are taking notes today, you might change something tomorrow, maybe 2 people will change, it goes better. How do you get to those whose brains are not willing to be like, oh, what the heck is a focus group? How do you get to, and I had to say it in a bass voice, how do get to those brains, hey, there's something in your brain that you've got to change. Because not everybody is willing to even start a conversation. Hey, buddy, I can see you're not okay. Where do we start? I've got close friends that you can see hey, homie's not right. Where do you open that? You can try to open that channel. Flipping out. I was one of them once upon a time. Where you couldn't even talk to like your closest buddies next to you hey guys, I'm shaky. But maybe it's a question. I don't know where that goes.
I'll ask a question just to add on to that. Like, how many men came here by themselves today? 2.
Like, as in like 4.
4.
Unloading the car.
As in like... No, I'm not asking, did you drive yourself?
You're one of the ones that needed to come here.
Like, sorry. How many, like, I'm trying to figure out how many men came here by themselves and how many men came here because, like, maybe a woman dragged them here. That's kind of what I'm trying to get to. And you, as someone, the men that are here, did you bring a male friend? And if you didn't, why didn't you? Because I think that kind of answers the question of how do we get to those?
Funny question that you say that. I didn't need to even know what this was about. I only found out today that this is a cinema.
Okay.
Literally, it was a mate of mine was like, hey dude, listen, something is on. And I'm always open to, shucks, it is me. Sorry.
No, it's me.
Oh. No, it is me.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's not the rugby. It's a reminder that says you've got this. It's in the mind. It is legit.
That's amazing.
Anywho, I only came here because a mate of mine was like, hey dude, listen, I'm doing a bit of work here, come through. Didn't know what it's about. Came here, and funny enough, there was another friend of ours that we were supposed to call to come here. Call the guy, he's like, I need to come, but funny, in my brain, I'm like, I know he's probably somebody who needed to. And that's somebody that, personally, that's a question, how do you tap into those minds that are just not willing?
What stopped you?
With Ukalab. Well, you can only go as far as, hey, dude, do you want to come through? If they say, no, I'm not going to come in. What is the primitive solution to it?
I've got a question and a comment, is that I believe I'm still primitive. Do you understand? I believe that the focus groups are there already.
Uh-huh.
Do you understand? I'll make an example is that at the age of 16 actually, I was prompted to go to something we call Etape. Okay. And a lot of men and boys traditionally have left that. In every Nguni culture, there's Koma. You understand? You understand? Any Nguni, if you're a Nguni, you go to the mountain. And on that mountain, a lot of things that we as men, we discuss there. Not just the tradition, not just your Isbonga Saku, but I'm speaking now because I'm a cultured man, you understand? But I'm saying that a lot of things that we are taught as men are spoken there, and women don't know about it. And I know a lot of people in my community where I live now that haven't went there. They'll go to Lyndhurst or they'll go to a clinic and, get chopped and circumcised and so forth. But circumcision is just one ritual. There's so many things else that you learn about being a man at the mountain that a lot of men don't learn about. So would you say that is a focus group? Because in that focus group, you learn that indota. You understand? You learn Uti. Indota, it's self-control, it's discipline. But by you skipping that step, wouldn't you say that is skipping a step in understanding what it takes for you to be a man to a woman, an African woman?
All right.
Not you understand?
I get you. I've got a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
My question is, and generally speaking, I come from, you can say, a traditional home, in the sense that I'll say it in the wedding. My dad brought us up knowing, oldest of 3 boys, he brought us up knowing that as a man, you bring somebody into your life. You understand that your life needs to make sense, and somebody comes in. However, my mom as well taught us, hey, you marry for companionship. That is something that sticks between, I've got 2 younger brothers, and we all have that. You marry for companionship. That answers your question of how do women deal with a man who's, give or take, going through stuff. It's the companionship. That's it. So maybe I can say I'm a bit lucky, but also don't come from what looks like a picturesque home. I may sound it, but trust me, it's. And then when you say the focus groups of we are in Tabeni and what we don't do that. But in that is stuff taught about weakness. That's something I don't understand. As in, is there identify there are things that you can't say obviously, but is it taught to hey buddy, if you're the pillar of strength, what happens when you crack?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with me in the sense that it took my mom, at my old age, my mom never ever saw me cry until what, 33, 34, maybe? Because you're always and that also filters into the relationships we have with women as a man, with they clean under. Like you never crack, if you're the pillar of strength, you never crack.
But I think that also there, right? That's also what speaks to what you also talked about. We don't generally have a safe, actually, as we actually don't actually have a safe place to go and talk. Because anywhere that you go, you have to be strong.
You can't show cracks.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because then...
You can, but you can't.
No, but actually, social media is good, right? Because it shows you how actually people think. And it will go and say, and you'll go and see all of these actual threads there. I mean, the masks, you are being actually soft, like all of these also actually things. That's how some of these guys think, right? And then now, like if I go outside then, and I go and I make myself actually, vulnerable, now I am, exposed, right? So there are not many safe places to actually talk. And it takes actually courage to actually come out and go and actually speak on these kind of things. So I do agree that we do need to take, accountability. But it's not as easy as to go and blame every man who actually doesn't actually do it now, because it's not a simple thing to do. It takes a lot of work. And my other question then towards you would be that if a man doesn't follow the things that you think that they need to be a man, I was born a man and I'm a man now. So then where do I fall then? Am I in some actually a gray area of not manners? Like what does that actually for me I kind of feel like it's being actually it's kind of like being black. I don't choose to be black. Like I am black. I actually can't act black. Same like I can't act like a man. I am a man because I was born a man. So I don't think that it's fair to go and say what a man is, because then what does that make me? Because if I don't feel like I fit into these certain things, which pool do I fall in? Which actual pool do I actually fall in?
So he's asking is, where do you cut the traditional line of we all, and as men, we all get it that not to perpetuate anything women might agree to, we all understand, yes, you know dumbass. Trust me. Where's that cutoff line? Must in now, yes, you can do everything you've got to do, but must you now be shattered mentally? But part of being in Dotamas, does that mean you can't show your human that, hey, I'm actually screwed, my brain is fried? Where do you draw that line? Sorry, shucks.
As a Costa mom, I've got a son who's supposed to go to initiation school, right? And now. So I'm Costa, but not hardcore to the point of which I was like, yes, he must go to the mountain. And he also was like, So I was like, you know what? It's really up to him to make that choice. I don't want to force it on him. And then something happens and I feel guilt-ridden. I shouldn't have let him go. But anyway, we had an umsebenzi at home, right? Now, the men were saying he's not man enough to eat with them.
Yes.
The men who are supposed to be the safe space, the men who are supposed to help him become a man, were the very same men who ostracized him, so to say. I don't know which other word, but they're very. And I was thinking, Ganti, if this thing is about teaching a man how to be a man, and why are you not welcoming him into this space? Yes, he hasn't gone to the mountains yet, but you could at least welcome him and, I don't know, sort of guide him so that he really does want to go to the mountain. And then I was told, he can't eat with us, you must do this and this for him because he hasn't been to the mountain. And I was like, does it's make you more of a man. I mean, does it make you more of a man because you went to the mountain? Because also now, we have traditional roles of a man, right? But now, let's say I stay in an estate or what's up or whatever, what man are you going to be manning in my life as that man who's gone to the mountain? Because one, I don't necessarily need you for security. I've got security guards here. I've been learning how to shoot. I can protect myself, right? I'm working, I'm making money. So I don't also need you to provide for me. So all these sort of traditional roles that you're still being taught in Islamic school, how are they going to be applied to his life here in Joburg? And also one thing about being in Joburg is, I'm not taking away from the tradition, by the way. Also another thing, because I started an NPO for the boy child, my thing was, there are certain things that must be done, like abomalume. Abomalume are the ones who are going to teach you how to slaughter. Here in Joburg, you can't get any uncle to just do that. You have to travel all the way to the Eastern Cape to learn the school, or wherever home is to acquire the school. And you don't choose to be an uncle, just like you don't choose to be black or father. It's something that happens to you. Your sister happens to have like 2 minutes niana. There's a child born. Now you need to father up. Okay, 3 again.
And you were winning, eh? And you were winning.
Now you need to father up, right? You now this uncle. You must play this role of an uncle. You must be a father. You never asked to participate in this thing. You must be an uncle. How do you uncle? How do you father? How do you do all these roles when there's no one nearby? Because also in us being independent, we've lost a sense of community. We don't have that being in Joburg, which also goes back to what you now need to travel back to Eastern Cape. But now if you go to Eastern Cape, there are those sort of rules and regulations that sort of bring you down and ostracize you. So you're not even able to learn when you go to where you are supposed to learn these things as a man.
How do I check? So just chat.
Yeah, no, just
Okay, cool.
That's gonna
So,
capture your voice.
I think. Okay, cool. I think that this is quite cool, right? Because what we're almost doing here is we exploring various philosophies. So certain people have different philosophies. You know, you've got philosophies on the Nguni side, you've got philosophies on the other side, whatever the case may be, right? But at the end of the day, if we're gonna stick to this whole thing about philosophy is not supposed to be a now you understand how the world is supposed to work. This is how it's supposed to be, right? All it's supposed to do is just help you clear out your lens a little bit better, right? So you're supposed to actually be able to hear a couple of thoughts, entertain them, but not necessarily accept them. So even some of the stuff that we're discussing today, I think, like on masculinity, what it's been for a journey for Mark, for me, these are all different things. I think that I like what he said earlier on in terms of like, we can't all have the same values. We're all gonna have very different values, right? So yeah, cool. It is dangerous to get to a point where you say, no, but this is how you become a man, right? You do this, if you skip that stage, you're not a man, or whatever the case may be, and this is how you become a woman. If you can't cook, you're not a woman, kind of thing. Those are very dangerous narratives to actually hold on to, right? Because right now we're exploring various philosophies, different philosophies, and it's helping us understand the world a lot better, but we'll never get to the point where we can actually say, this is how the world is supposed to work. Because then we'll start constructing things that we're trying to deconstruct again right now. We constructed masculinity back then on these narratives of that, no, the world must be like this. And now you're trying to deconstruct it, but now you'll be careful because you'll deconstruct and then you'll create something brand new that is now a new Hitler. You know? So yeah, I think it's cool to sit and actually like open up the minds, listen to everybody, but you don't necessarily have to accept absolutely everything that we hear today. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
So I think for me it's more of a comment and an observation more than anything. Is that for me personally, the journey of discovering where I stand in society as the modern man has been through self-awareness. Is knowing me, what are my preferences, how do I think, what do I like, what do I don't like, and then it's been where do I fit in? Because through time, I've shifted friendship groups, I've shifted how I interact with certain family members because I simply don't fit in that anymore, right? And it speaks to also the tradition aspect, is that, you know, as a Nguni man, you're expected indota, mele yenze nje. Indoda provides, but in a sense, it also builds a sense of expectation, and that's what ends up leading us to these depressive episodes, anxieties, because we are not fitting that sculpture, that narrative. So we feel like we're not doing enough, but meanwhile, we've actually done a lot. And so my thing has been trying to encourage other men in my different spaces to just speak. Doug, let's grab a beer, as kulum. It's not just how are you, no, how are you really? Like what's bothering you, like over and above anything else. And let's see how we can chat about it and see there's always a solution. Like I may not have a solution, but I may know someone who's been through something similar and they can help you out. So again, it's the question of how do we try change this thinking, this mentality. It's just doing the bare minimum in our spaces individually. Like just doing that one or two people that you can speak to. If you've made a difference in their lives, they can pay it forward and pass it on. Like we can't change the world all at once. We can't change how some men think, how women view men all at once. But if we can in our own personal spaces make a difference, that will then influence the greater society. But yeah, that's just me.
No. Like I really love like this topic because, look, like I said, this is why this is happening is because if I conform based on the fact that 6 other people are doing it, it makes me not who I am. You understand? And look, I agree that we need focus groups. I myself believe that a man is not supposed to be soft. Men doesn't cry, And why I say these things is because I was taught that a man must always be provided with responsibilities. And once he has responsibilities, he then rises up. Do you understand? And responsibilities in a man make you a man. You understand? Responsibility doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you're great. It doesn't mean you won't break. It just means that you are held accountable. And when I say accountable, held accountable to the highest level. You understand? And when you are at your highest level in terms of accountability, you perform. You understand? And you become who God or I don't know, like God or deity you would call needs you to be for your family. You understand? And I'll go back again and say I agree and I disagree some of the points, but I think my last comments and leadership, thank you for setting this up, is that I think ultimately what we need to know is that as men, we need to step up, we need to communicate, we need to be clear. You need to be clear. We communicate, but we communicate in anger or we communicate with shaking our woman, and that's wrong. We need to be clear in terms of our words and helping our ladies understand the challenges we are going through. But moreover, I believe that vulnerability does not mean you are weak. You understand? Vulnerability means that at that point, you need strength. And there are things that are in place, and this is one of them. And I feel like that at some point, we need to agree to disagree that there are certain things that we have lost as men, that we lost from our grandfathers and fathers due to the different circumstances that we went through, that we can go back to, that can help not just us, but our kids and our sons. By the way, I've only got daughters. I've got 4 daughters. You understand? I'm not speaking based on I've got sons. No, I've got daughters, and I teach my daughters that as a woman you need to be this way. For a man, you understand? And that's why I'm saying this, that based on my experience, my understanding, and that's what has kept my sanity. And I'd like to think that I'm doing well. I'd like to think that I'm doing well in my life, and I'd like to think that my sanity is in check. But I still say that as men, as much as women, please be kind to us and understanding to us and communicate with us, but still keep us to the highest accountability. Because if you don't keep a man to, he will leave on Thursday and he will come back home on Sunday, trust me. You understand? You understand? If you don't keep a man accountable, he will leave on Thursday and he'll come back home on Sunday. And I know that through experience. You understand? No, like, yeah, but hey, you've run out of time.